What's up, YouTube? Hello, hello, hello. All right, so thank you for joining my video. Hopefully y'all saw my first post. I'm starting a new account and I figured I would come here and just kind of tell my story. Before I even start posting content, excuse my sweaty face and my crazy hair. I'm in the middle of doing a Zumba certification course and I felt like I was going to take a break for a few minutes because I was sweating and I needed a break. So I sat down and I was like, let me just post, excuse my voice, I'm a little scratchy. I was like, let me just post one video kind of telling my story, my life story, like my background and everything before I even go into personal development and trying to, gain and grow a community here. Let people know like what I've been through and that there is, light at the end of the tunnel if you have ever dealt and been through things. So, if you want to join me and watch this video, please do. And then give me a subscribe and leave me some comments because I love interacting. So, all right. So my name is Alicia McFadden. I'm 36 years old, from Dallas, Texas. And I just recently moved to Toole, Texas. I had a wonderful childhood growing up. My grandparents gave me the best life that I could have ever imagined. From the time I was like 4 years old, I danced, I did jazz, ballet, tap, gymnastics, the whole 9 yards when I was a kid, all the way up until high school. And then I started cheerleading. So I got my very first car, like when I got my driving permit, and when I turned 15 years old, I got my very first car, and I loved it. It was a bright yellow convertible GT Mustang. When I graduated high school, I got a 2007 brand new Mustang off the showroom floor that I picked out myself and everything. So my family gave me a really great childhood growing up. I've actually had a pretty good life, but there's been some traumatizing things go on and that have traumatized me and situations in my life. So I want to share those with the world and share those with you that are willing to watch this video and kind of just hang out here on my channel and hopefully join me on this personal development journey that I'm going on and starting, and maybe we can do some personal development and changing our lives together and bettering ourselves one day at a time, and working out together and just kind of do a personal development and weight loss journey together. I'm trying to grow a little bit of a community here. So let's do that. But okay, so back to my story. So I danced in high school. My grandmother spent freaking like $500 on prom dresses for me. My family was wonderful to me. I love my family, but I'm dealing with a lot of family dynamics at the moment that I've been dealing with since last year, and it's really heartbreaking and upsetting to me, but I just take it one day at a time. So my house was like the party spot in high school. Like all the friends after prom came to my house and the whole 9 yards. So I had a great childhood growing up. In 2012, I got with this guy. He was a little bit younger than me, and we started seeing each other. And not long after, like, we started seeing each other, he started putting his hands on me. And he lived on this property. He actually lived 5 minutes up the street from me, where I grew up in my home, like where I lived all my life. And it was only 5 minutes up the street from me. But once I got on this property, it was like a huge property. They closed the gate at the end of the driveway, and the gate stayed closed. And it was just one of those things. Like, I got trapped in this abusive relationship, basically. And it was like I was fighting for my life every day, and it was just crazy. So the first time this man put his hands on me, he put his hands on me. We were outside riding a mule, I guess you would call it, or like a side-by-side type thing. Something that has four wheels. It's not a four-wheeler, but it's got four wheels. I don't know. He called it a mule, or they called it a mule. And we were riding it, and I had my car keys, stuck in my bra to hold my keys. That way I didn't drop them, because we were still like newly kind of seeing each other, so it wasn't like I intended on like being there and staying the night there or anything like that. Well, we got into an argument about something, and no sooner than we got into an argument, this man put his hands on me. And he took my car keys and he threw them like off of this four-wheeler that we were riding and threw them somewhere. So my car keys were gone. And he was putting his hands on me, and I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, like, I wanted in my car and I wanted away from the situation, to flee from the situation. And that just didn't happen. So this is going to be a little bit of a story. I'm going to tell you all my story from my years with him and my recovering addict days and stuff like that, and just kind of go into my personal development story. So let's talk about it. So this man put his hands on me, and from the very first time he put his hands on me, like he literally, from that time, like he put his hands on me, I was trapped at that freaking, I mean, I could have gotten away a couple of times. There were some times when I could have gotten away, but I literally, so if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, there's a reason why you stay. And I know that people don't understand that. I know I just got off track, but I know that people don't understand why women stay in abusive relationships, but everybody has their own reason. And my reason for not getting away when I had the chances to were literally because I was too scared to go home and have my family see me beat up and black and blue and bruised. I thought that I was going to get in trouble for allowing this man to do this to me. So when I had the chances to get away, I did not get away. So he put his hands on me, and from that night when he put his hands on me, literally I ended up living there, staying there. His grandmother, his father was the first major murder that happened in the small town where I grew up in Sigaville, Texas. And so he remembers as a kid going to his father's funeral, and his grandmother let the death of her son really take control of her life, and she had a good life after that, but she let it control her. She became an addict, all these things. She had mental health issues, and she had tried to commit suicide and stuff like this and that several times, I think. But so all of the windows in the house were screwed and screwed and glued shut to the point where I couldn't get out a window if I wanted to get out of a window. The locks on the door, you had to get out from the inside with a key on the inside of the house versus like you're coming in through a front door with a key on the outside of the house. It was a key on the inside that she kept on her all the time. So once you got in the house, you were locked in the house. Once you were on that property and they closed that gate, there was no getting my car off this property. And so I ended up just being with this guy, and we were together for 3 or 4 years. And we had some good times, but not very many. It turned out to be a terribly, terribly abusive relationship for me. And I was always the girl that said, oh, I would never allow somebody to put their hands on me. I would never allow that. It would never happen to me. And this happened to me, and it just really caught me off guard. The whole situation and how I got there and stayed there. So there's so many stories and so many situations that I've been put through. This man, at one point, he was macing me in the face all the time. He put a shotgun to my head, cocked back and loaded, and he was just terribly abusive. There was one point when he shaved all my hair. He grabbed me by the hair of my head. He was in his bed sleeping, and I found out that he had taken some pills, so he was under the influence, and he was in the bed sleeping. Well, I got up. I couldn't sleep, so I went to the kitchen. So I'm baking cookies and making some barbecue chicken in the kitchen, cooking dinner and whatnot, and he gets up and he comes in there and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm not even trying to blast this man. I know that he's doing good nowadays in life. I hope he's doing good nowadays in life. So I'm not trying to blast him. I'm not going to say his name or anything like that. But I'm just telling my story. That way, who decides to follow me here and join me on this journey will know more about me and know, a personal little bit about me. That way we can make friends and, kind of like I said in my first video. So this man one night, he gets up out of the bed and he comes in there, and the first thing he did, he approached me and he grabbed me by my hair and he wrapped my hair around his hand and he started hitting me. And I was like, holy crap, what the heck is going on? Why are you even putting your hands on me? I don't understand. You just got out of bed for just sleeping peacefully and you're just up on a rampage now for no reason. I didn't understand. Well, he thought that I was in there cheating on him or something strange, doing something in the house when he's there. That was very strange to me. And so he drags me to the bathroom this night. He dragged me to the bathroom, and on the bathroom counter, there was a pair of men's hair shears, like that men shave their head, like a buzz cut or whatever, shave their face and shave their head with. And so he grabbed these hair shears, and he hit me in the head with these hair shears. And then he just started going to town, shaving my hair all the way to my scalp, like bald. And my hair was long, beautiful hair. Oh my gosh. And I just remember him looking at me and going, let another MFer, like another mother effer, look at you, like look at you again. Or like, yeah, that's what he said. Let another motherfucker look at you again. Excuse my language. And I was just like, oh my God, my hair. Like, what do I do? And I was trying to get away from him, and he had my hair wrapped around his fist the entire time. So I'm like grabbing at things around me and trying to get away. And I grabbed this round ashtray, like a round plastic ashtray. That's all I could get my hands on. And I took it and I hit him in the head with it, like as hard as I could. And all of a sudden, like, all I know is the whole top of my head is completely bald. And I hear bam, 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 bam. And it was Mesquite Police Department, which was we had moved into a apartment at this point. His grandmother was like, I don't know, her bathroom had caught on fire at her house and all this and that. So we had moved into this was like 2 years after we were together. So I'm not going to tell my entire story, but I'm going to give y'all a little bit of a rundown of what I've been through. So the Mesquite Police Department banged on the door, and he drugged me to the bedroom and pushed me down in the bed, and he looked at me and he said, if you make a sound, I will kill you. And I was terrified. Like, I was so terrified. So he covers me up completely, and I'm just laying in this bed, like completely still, flat as can be. And I'm just laying there, and I hear him go and open the front door, and they're like asking him what's going on. And as soon as they start looking around the apartment, and they see hair clumps everywhere of long hair all over the place. And then they saw some candle wax that had ended up on the bar on the wall. I guess I knocked a candle over when I hit him in the head with the ashtray. And so they saw all that. So they came in, forcefully came in, and they handcuffed him right away and started looking around the apartments. And all I remember was hearing this officer walk into the bedroom and like looking around, and he's talking to the other officer. And I just remember feeling the blanket just like start lifting up over me. And I was laying there like a deer in headlights, like with my eyes just like, I didn't know whether to open my eyes or close my eyes. I didn't know what to do. I just remember laying there as flat as I could be, like trying to hide and be completely quiet. And so this cop, he pulls the blanket back from over me. And when he did, I literally I was like a deer in headlights. And he looked at me, and at this point, we had been fighting for a couple days. My entire face was black and blue. Like, my head was like swole up 3 times the size of what it should have been my forehead. And so he looks at me, and his mouth just drops. And he's like, who did this to you? And I didn't know if I should say anything or make a noise or not, because he threatened to kill me. He was literally like, if you make a single noise, I swear I'll kill you. And so I just looked at this cop, and I just mouthed him. And I said it really low, and I pointed, I nodded my head in that direction. And right away, they had already had him in handcuffs and everything. And so they tackled him to the ground and they started being really rough with him. And they actually dropped him down, it was snowing outside, and we lived on the 3rd floor. And I think they actually fell down going down the stairs with him and everything. So once they got him in the cop car and took him away, they came and they interviewed me and investigated me or whatnot, and was asking me all these questions. I just remember my entire face being solid black. He asked me if it was mascara that was running down my face, and I told him no, that they were all bruises. And so they took photos of me, and they asked me all these questions and whatnot, and they interviewed me or investigated me. And I was just traumatized, and I was terrified. And I was in my head, I was thinking, holy crap, there's got to be a way that I can get back home. This is going to be my way to get out of this situation and go back home. But my heart and me being terrified, I wasn't only terrified of this man and what had happened, what he had done to me. I was terrified of going home bald-headed and beat black and blue. I was so scared. I did not take that opportunity to get out of that situation because I was too scared to go home and have my family see me that way and know that somebody had done that to me. So if you're in an abusive relationship, just know that please know that your life is on the line every second that you stay in that relationship, but there is a way out. I know that everybody has their reasons for staying in an abusive relationship, but there are resources and there are people out there that will love you and have your back through and through to help you get out of those relationships. So if you happen to be in an abusive relationship and you need some help out of it, like, send me some type of comment in my comment section and just let me know, and I will do what I can do to help you out of this situation. Yes, because your life is, anybody that's in an abusive relationship, their life is on the line every second. You never know what this person could think or how they react or how they snap and respond to things. So yes, please know that I'm always there to try to help somebody that needs help out of a relationship, or that needs advice, or just a shoulder to lean on, or anything like that. If I'll be your girl, I promise you, I'll be your best friend. Like, I'll have your back. But yes, so back to my story. So that happened, and I literally was bald-headed for several months. Bald-headed completely. He went to jail for a couple nights, and his grandfather bonded him out like he always did. Like, his grandfather spoiled him his entire life and just didn't, I'm not going to say didn't raise him well, but his father passing away or being murdered when he was younger gave him really bad anger issues, and he just didn't know how to control his temper, and he was just handed everything that he wanted in life like way too early. And I don't know, this man was just not right in the head when it came to his temper, and he just couldn't control it. And I mean, I don't even know how to justify how he was to me. It was bad. There was another situation where he took me on a high-speed police chase with like 15 cop cars behind us for absolutely no reason whatsoever. He started to get pulled over, and it was one of the points, like, we weren't supposed to be around each other, but I couldn't get away from this man, basically. Every time I would ask him to take me home or like put me out on the side of the road or anything, he would never take me home. He would never allow me to go home. And I literally lived 5 minutes up the street. And so, we were not supposed to be around each other, but this cop got behind us and started to try to pull us over. And as soon as he got behind us and turned his lights on, he was like, "I'm running." And so he just started running like pedal to the metal, like gassed it, and just got out of there. But he did not get out of there at all. A few minutes later, there was like 15 cop cars behind us, literally hauling butt, doing like 100 miles an hour down this neighborhood roads. And it was really dark back there, and then like where we were. And I remember him turning his headlights off and literally driving in the complete dark, doing like 100 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, I just remember looking back in the mirror on the side, and seeing all these cop cars like flying behind us. And then I remember looking up in front of me and seeing, it was dark. He had his headlights off, but I remember looking up, and it was so close to me. It was like, oh my gosh, it came out of nowhere. The road came to either you go left or you go right, or there are woods in front of you. You cannot proceed. You're going to crash. And all of a sudden, we slammed into these trees, like these huge trees. It went to turned into like woods all of a sudden. And we slammed into these trees really freaking hard. The only thing I could do was put my knees up on the dash to brace myself. And luckily, the airbag didn't slam me in my face, or we didn't die. And he looked at me and he was like, "I got to get out. I'm running. Are you coming with me?" He never asked if I was okay or nothing. He was like, "Are you coming with me?" I was like, "No, I'm not." So, I mean, he wouldn't put me out. I kept asking him, "Please just stop and just put me out. Please stop and just put me out. You're scaring me." Like, that was one of the most terrifying nights of my life. I just thought, I knew we were going to die in that freaking high-speed police chase. I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But so he jumped out and he took off running. So I rolled the window down and I put my hands out the window, and they make me climb out the window, not even open the door, climb out the window, walk backwards, get on my face, put my hands in the air, the whole 9 yards. So I had to sit in the back of a cop car for 2.5 hours being eaten alive by mosquitoes. Oh my gosh, the biggest and the worst, most painful mosquitoes ever. Being eaten alive by mosquitoes in handcuffs in the back of this cop car for 2 hours while there's 2 helicopters flying over us. All of these cops looking for this man that just took them on a high-speed police chase, and he gets away. I didn't know what to tell them. I was too scared to tell them that he was my boyfriend, but I think I told them a lie and told them that it was somebody that was just giving me a ride home. And unfortunately, I don't like to lie, and I told them that because I was just terrified. Like, I didn't know what to do or what to say. And so they ended up actually taking me home to my grandmother's house where I grew up and dropping me off there that night, dropping me off there. And the very next morning, my grandmother, she saw on the news his truck wrecked on Fox 4 News. She saw his truck wrecked and my big pink zebra bag purse sitting on the tailgate of his truck. So she knew that I was like, something had happened. So she came back to my bedroom and I was back in my bedroom and she was like, what happened last night? Why is his truck wrecked? And why are y'all on the news? And all this and that. I was like, my first response was, I don't know why he ran. Like, I don't understand. I just started bawling my eyes out. And so I was home for a couple days, and for whatever reason I went back to this man's house, back to him. And like, I don't know why. I don't know. It was just my mind. My mind was so just distraught and in a bad place during this situation and during this relationship. So I went back, and I was stuck again, like literally stuck again. And there's just so many things. Like, he took me on the high-speed police chase. He shaved my head completely bald. He busted my head open. One time I was wearing, I don't know if you remember the plastic bump it things that sit on your head, and they like have the little teeth, and you tease your hair, and then it gives you the bump in your hair without having to do all the hair teasing and all that. I was wearing one of those, and we got into an argument, and like, I never tried to argue. Like, there was never a logical reason as to why we were arguing. He always accused me of cheating, but I never could get away from him, so I wouldn't cheat. Like, I'm not a cheater. He always had some type of reason that he was arguing with me, like for something, but none of it ever made any sense. Like, it was things that he made up in his own head, that he was believing his own lies about this relationship and what was going on. And so we got into an argument, and he right away, like, he would always hit me like right away. And so he hit me really hard, and when he hit me in my head. And as soon as I looked down like that, like, my reflection was to like, bam. So he hits me in my head, like, whatever. And as soon as I look down, my entire front of my body is already covered in blood. So I'm like, holy crap, what the heck? So I take this bump it out of my hair, and I go to the bathroom, and I can stick 4 fingers in my head. It gashed my entire head open. And so he takes off running then, and the ambulance comes to my house, or to the place where we were, and they put me in the ambulance, and they checked me out. They told me I needed like several staples in my head, but I didn't go to the hospital. So so his grandfather took me back home that night to his house, or to my house, excuse me, to where I grew up again. I went back there, and I laid in that bedroom for 2 days, keeping myself awake because I was too scared that if I went to sleep, I was gonna bleed to death and die. And I didn't make a noise. I didn't let my grandmother know that I was home or anything. I didn't take a shower because I didn't want to open the wound even more. So I just laid back there for 2 days, making sure that I stayed awake. And finally, like, once it started closing up and healing up, I got up and I went and told my grandma I was home and all that. Somehow, some way, another mysterious time, I ended up back there again. I don't know why. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what was going through my mind. It was just one of those things. He would show up at my house, and so I felt like I needed to go with him because, he was an abuser. Like, they're manipulators. They change your mindset. Like, they change you. They brainwash, and they they control you. So I felt like I needed to go with him, and so I got stuck there again. And there was one time he almost ran me over doing like 70 miles an hour. He put me out on the side of the highway. The one time he put me out, I literally, I started walking. I turned and was walking back the opposite way on the highway. And like, all of a sudden, so the highway, I don't know if you know, like the metal, not a guardrail itself, but like the metal cage type of wire or whatever that's really thick like that. And it goes and it's like splits like the road. There was one of those. So I started walking. So I jumped over that and I got to the service road side of the road. And so I'm walking back this opposite direction. And all of a sudden I hear, whoa, like an engine roaring coming at me. So he got to where that he got to where he could make a U-turn and come back towards me. And he was driving towards me, at least doing 70 miles an hour. Had no intentions of stopping at all. Like, he would have killed me. The only thing that saved my life was me jumping back over this metal cable that separated the highway and the service road. I dove over this metal cable so fast because he literally, the only thing that kept him from hitting me was me diving over that metal cable and him swerving because he didn't want to hit his fancy little truck to this metal cable. But he literally like swerved like this far away from it. And so I rolled my ankle and I cut my arm down this metal wire thing that was, like it separated the highway and the service road, and it was like this thick around. And so I cut my arm open really bad on it. I rolled my ankle, so I was just laying there on the side of the road, and he gets out and he grabs me by my hair and pulls me back over this metal cable and drags me back to the truck. And all I heard on this highway was one car laying on their horn as they're passing, but of course they're on the other side of the highway, so they had no way of stopping to help me. And I just heard that. And I remember we went to his mom's house after that. He made me lie to his mom about what happened to me. And like this stupid story, I don't even remember what it was, but literally I lied to her and told her like whatever it was that he had come up with, this bright story to keep it looking like he abused me, when she knew that he was abusive to me anyway. So she knew that I was lying and taking up for him. But I just went along with it because I always just, I don't know. I was stupid. I was really stupid. But my life was in danger like every day. And I never knew I never knew when he was going to flip out or whatever. So I actually started using, this is when my drug addiction came into play. I found out that he was using methamphetamines. And so I started using drugs with him because I got high with him one time. And once I got high with him one time, I was like, okay, he was in a better mood. Like that actually kind of kept the peace in the situation. So I started getting high with him, and it was like that was what kept the peace, but the peace didn't last very long. Like by the end of the night, I was getting beat up like once every 3 days, 2-3 days. I was getting my ass beat. Excuse my language, but I was literally getting beaten like black and blue, and just all these situations. So yes, so that's where I come into play with abuse and addiction, and so I was with him from 2012. I think I got away from him in 2015. Luckily there was this girl that he started doing heroin with. I guess he moved his drug addiction from methamphetamines to heroin, and I'd never done heroin. I will never do heroin. I've never tried heroin. I've never thought about trying heroin. And he started doing heroin. Well, he met this girl and got involved with her, and I didn't know he was cheating on me. But then one day he told me he was cheating on me, and I was like, okay, whoa, why are we going to stay in this relationship if you're cheating on me? And so I actually talked to the girl, and he told me that he was leaving me for her. So I talked to the girl, and I gave her a heads up. I was like, look, honey, you're getting yourself into a really dangerous situation with this man. Like, you just need to go back the opposite way and choose like yourself over this situation. But they ended up getting together, and he dropped me off at home that day. Literally just took me and dropped me off at home that day, and I've never seen him since then. And that was in 2015. And so I was struggling really bad with PTSD. I struggled really bad with PTSD for several years. Like I got back home, and I didn't tell anybody what I had been going through in my family. Like my grandparents didn't know anything about me being abused like that, like to the extent of what I was. And I was struggling with PTSD terribly. Like I would be in a room by myself. I would hear mine and his voice screaming and yelling at the top of each other's lungs. And there would be absolutely nobody in the room with me. He wasn't there. He had done dropped me off, and we went our separate ways. And I knew that he wasn't coming back this time. And so that, I was grateful for that. But I was hearing voices. Like I would be standing next to my mother, and my mother would turn around and like walk to the other room, and I would hear my mother talking to him. Like my grandparents talking to him, and them talking about me, and like all these things, like being against me and all this and that. And I would like confront my family and be like, who are you talking to? Like, what are you talking about? Why are you talking to him? Like, where is he, and why is he at this house? Like, I didn't understand what it was that I was going through. And they're like, we're not talking to anybody. He's not here. We're not talking to anybody. We're not saying anything. I didn't say anything. And I'd be like, no, I just heard you say something. You were just talking to somebody. And they would tell me, no, honey, it's in your head. Like you need to go see a doctor. You are suffering from some mental illness or some type of mental situation. And that's when I finally started opening up to my family and telling my family the extent that the abuse went to. And so that's when I realized that I was suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was still using drugs because I mean, that clearly wasn't making my mental state or status any better. But I was using them to cope with everything that I had been through, and I actually burned all my bridges. Everybody, I was going through my mental issues and everything, and I tried to go to the doctor and get medicated several times. I've been medicated for years actually, but nothing has ever worked for me, I don't think. And I got tired of being a guinea pig for all these pills. I got tired of going to a mental health doctor and just being put on pills. I wanted to talk to somebody. I wanted a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, and I could never find one. Never find a doctor that would just talk to me and help me through my situation and teach me how to cope with PTSD versus just putting me on medication. And so I ended up homeless. I burned all my bridges. I lived at my grandmother's house and my grandfather's house. Growing up, I lived with my mother, my father, and my grandmother. So I had a room at all three places. And so in my high school years and all of that, in high school and middle school, I actually moved in full time with my grandparents. And I lived there. So I burned my bridges there. I burned my bridges with my mother and my father all throughout this time that I was struggling really bad with my mental health issues, and I was on drugs, and they found out I was on drugs, and just this whole situation. And I ended up homeless. Literally my rock bottom, when I realized I had hit my rock bottom, I slept on a huge landscaping rock, maybe 6 foot by 5 foot landscaping rock that sat off the ground, maybe 2 feet high. I found myself hitting my rock bottom, and I knew that I hit my rock bottom when I found myself sleeping on a landscaping rock in front of my father's house with a backpack as a pillow for 3 nights, and I had absolutely nowhere to go. My father wouldn't let me in his house, let me on his property, nothing like that. And so I was homeless. I wasn't homeless for long. I was homeless for a week. But that week literally made me realize that I had hit my rock bottom, my lowest of lows in my life. And I, literally I paced back and forth up and down my street, one night from 7 o'clock at night until noon the next day, because I had nowhere to go. I didn't want to walk all the way around town. I had already walked all the way around town, all the way across town, as a matter of fact, hearing this dude's voice, trying to figure out why he was talking to me and jacking with me still when we had nothing to do with each other. I walked to his apartment. Thank God I didn't go to his apartment. I sat on these stairs at this car wash for 4 hours just trying to talk myself through what I was going through and get myself through it. So I got back up finally after 4 hours, and I walked all the way back across town with absolutely nowhere to go. So I just paced back and forth, and finally the next morning I went and I sat down on my bench by my front door at my grandmother and my grandfather's house, and my grandmother walked out, and she was going to go up the street to my stepdad's house and tell my stepdad to come get me because she wanted me off the property. But she said something to me that day, and I don't know what made her actually say something to me that day, but she did. And my first words were, "Will you take me somewhere?" And she was like, "Where do you want me to take you?" I said, "Will you take me to a treatment center and drop me off, please?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, it's first come, first serve, so I'm going to need somewhere to stay for the night. Can I stay here?" And she said, "No, I will get you a motel room." So she got me a motel room. I couldn't get there the next morning because there was already, first come, first serve, it was already filled up. I went there and I couldn't get in. So she got me a motel room for another night, and the next morning I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I went to this treatment center. It was a 28-day treatment center called Turtle Creek Recovery in Dallas, Texas. It was the best decision I had ever made in my entire life. Take myself to treatment. It was 28 days long, and I had given up my addiction. I was I've hit my rock bottom. I do not want to get high anymore. I do not want to do this anymore. I need to figure out why I'm hearing voices. I need to figure out what is going on in my head and with my life. I need Jesus back in my life. And so I stayed this 28 days at at this treatment center. And when I got out, luckily my grandparents let me come back home, and I started cleaning with a friend of mine. I got a job paying me $10 an hour cleaning houses, and I saved up enough money to buy me a car and get back on my feet. And then I started applying at different places, like trying to think of jobs that paid me more than $10 an hour, of course, and think of jobs that I could turn into a career. So I had this idea. All of a sudden, I thought United States Postal Service. So I go in my office at the house, and I get on the computer, and I put in FedEx, and I put in United States Postal Service, and I go to the USPS.com website, and I go to the bottom where it says careers. And so I click on it, and oh my gosh, this was God working in my life since I was like in recovery and doing great and all this. God put this freaking career in front of me, and it was the greatest thing. Like, unfortunately, I don't have it anymore, and I'll get to that here in a few minutes. But so the town where I lived, exactly 30 minutes from my house, was hiring. The office was hiring there. And literally I got a call 2 days later from them that asked me to come and take some tests for them. I had to take 2 tests, and I got hired on at the post office like 2 weeks later. And I was so ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, this is a good thing. The Postal Service I can retire from. Like, I don't even care about anything about how difficult this job is going to be. Like, I was so pumped. And I loved my job. I was a mail carrier in Terrell, Texas for 6 years. And I loved it. I saw myself retiring from there. I was really good at my job. Like, I made my route. Like, the Postal Service is all about seniority. So you have to work your way up the ladder of as far as how you become a regular carrier. And I literally didn't even have to wait 2 years before I became a regular carrier. I got my route that I wanted to get. I loved it. The people had become like my family. They were my greatest people. I loved them. I bought gifts for people, for little girls and little kids on holidays. I dressed up for them for holidays. I bought Veterans Day cards for veterans, and I put them in their mailboxes. Like, I pampered these people. I loved them so much, and I loved my route. I made sure that I tried to the best of my ability to take care of these people and make sure that these people were satisfied with my service that I was giving them, delivering their mail. And in 2020, July 4th of 2020, I went to a male strip club. I don't know why. I wanted to go out somewhere. I hadn't gone out nowhere in years, or like 2 years. And it was 2017 when I got clean and out of the treatment center. So I was like, had a wild hair at my butt one night, and I got off work, and I was like, I want to go out somewhere, but I didn't know where to go. So I went to the male strip club that I was familiar with, that I've been to I grew up around when I was growing up. So I was familiar with this club. So I went to this club by myself, and I drank too much. I got a DWI like an idiot and put myself in jail. And that happened. I bonded myself out of jail. Thank God I had the money to be able to pay for myself and pay for my attorney and all that without my grandmother having to do anything, or my grandparents, anybody having to do anything to help me. So I bonded myself out of jail. I hired an attorney, this, that, and the other. Well, like 3 weeks later, not even 3 or 4 weeks later, I'm driving my Jeep, and I'm pulling my jet ski, and I go to my lake house, my grandparents' lake house. We had a lake house all my life. It literally just sold like a couple days ago out of my family, and that's really unfortunate and disappointing. I'm so sad about it. But so I'm pulling my jet ski, and I had a glass of wine after church. When I went to eat after church, I had a glass of wine. I went to my lake house, and I went swimming for a little while after church, and I had, I think, a little glass of wine there. So everything that I drank, I had 2 glasses of wine like throughout the day. I knew I couldn't drink and drive, so I spaced it out for several hours before I even left. Well, I leave, and I'm driving down the road on the highway, and I'm pulling my jet ski. Oh, lo and behold, I have a freaking trailer light out, and I get pulled over for it. Well, they saw that I had recently been pulled over for a DWI, and so they start asking me questions and like looking through my vehicle, and I brought the trash back that was in the trash can at the house, at the lake house. I was going to take it to my house because there's no trash service at the lake house and throw it away. Well, there were empty alcohol cans in this trash bag. So they freaking got me out and did a sobriety test. I passed the sobriety test and everything, but they took me to the hospital and checked my blood alcohol level, and there was a tiny bit of freaking alcohol still in my blood system. So I got a second DWI, unfortunately. And oh my gosh, I thought my life was just going to come to an end. I was devastated, like completely devastated, but I handled it. Also, I got myself out. I bonded myself out. I called my attorney. So he represented me on both DWI cases. I served 18 months of probation, and I had a breathalyzer in my vehicle for 18 months. So I did my punishment. Nobody was harmed. I didn't wreck or hurt anybody. Thank God. So I did my probation successfully, but about 2 months after my second DWI, I was at work and I started hearing people when I would walk past them like start whispering and talking about me. And I was like, oh no. They know, like somebody knows, and people are talking. Well, I found out that one of my lovely coworkers printed my mugshot out and started passing it around the office to people and showing people that I got a second DWI and telling people that I was a disgrace to the Postal Service and that I didn't deserve my route. And like people started trying to bully me out of my mail route. And I put up with it for like a year. And after I still heard people talking about me, and my union steward didn't back me up. Like she showed up over the phone. She never answered my calls. She never tried to call me. She never had my back about the situation. And neither did my postmaster. All I wanted them to do was address the entire office as a whole about workplace violence and harassment. And they would not do that. They didn't feel it was necessary to do that. So once none of them had my back on the situation, I was like, you know what? I'm putting in my resignation. And that's the biggest regret that I've ever made. But I put in my resignation and I resigned from there. So after 6 years, I resigned, and I thought I was going to retire from there. But that didn't happen. And so I've had some other jobs since then. Now that I recently moved, I'm looking for a job again because I just moved too far away from where I was working. So I'm looking for me a job here in my new town. But yeah, so that was in 2024. I resigned from the Postal Service, and in July of 2024, I got this letter. My grandmother got this letter, and it's in the mail. Me and my grandmother used to open the mail all the time together. I would check the mail, she would check the mail, but we would open the mail together. I would call and pay bills and stuff like that. My grandmother managed her own bank account, all this and that. She was completely over her own finances. And there's this letter that comes from Adult Protective Services. My grandmother is the closest person to me and has been the closest person to me for 36 years of my life, okay? There was this letter that came from Adult Protective Services accusing me of abuse, neglect, and extortion, all to my grandmother, which would have been all felony charges to the elderly. I would have been in the penitentiary for like 20 years if I would have, like, this case is still open. As a matter of fact, that's where I'm going with this bit of the story. So in July of 2024, this case gets opened, accusing me of abuse, neglect, and extortion. And I was like, holy moly, those are some serious accusations. Like, what in the world? Who is accusing me of that? What is going on? And so I'm still baffled by that. So I right away, as soon as I read the letter with my grandmother, I read it to her out loud, and I was like, Nanny, this is really serious. We need to call these people right now. So we called Adult Protective Services, and the lady, she answered the phone right away, and she started talking to us, and me and my grandmother sat there together on speakerphone, both communicating and talking to this lady. And we had like a 2-hour-long phone conversation. She interviewed both of us right on the spot over the phone. And I kept in contact with this lady every day, every second of the day, like from the time that we made this phone call for 2 weeks. And like almost every second of the day, I was like keeping in contact with her, like updating her about what's going on in life and like my grandmother, and like telling her my side of the story of, our relationship and me living with my grandparents. Like I lived with my grandparents for all my life. When my grandfather got cancer, I moved back home. I had an apartment and I moved back home when my lease was up and stuff like that. And when I got away from the guy, because I didn't want my grandmother living in a big house when my grandfather passed away by herself, and she wanted me there. So, It wasn't like I just lived with my grandparents because I had nowhere to be or anything like that. Like, they wanted me there. There was a big house. I had my side of the house. They had the other. I've worked since I was 16 years old. I've always worked. I always helped with bills. I always helped. I paid my own way from the time I was 16 years old, 17 years old. I paid my own way unless my grandmother wanted to do something for me. She would. But they... So I kept in contact with APS, and there was the lady. She was very nice. She was going to open and close the case once she investigated us and realized that I was not abusing, neglecting, or extorting my grandmother. And she told me, when I had talked to her, she told me to take my grandmother to the doctor and have a capacity test done on her, and she was diagnosed with dementia. My grandmother never had a single sign of dementia until right when that letter came. It was like 2 days after the letter came from APS. My grandmother wanted to start walking down the road and like venturing off. And I was like, that's not good. That's not good at all. She has a bad knee. Like, she don't need to walk down the road. But my she's 81 years old. She has always been healthy up until the end of her 80s. Healthy, active, could run circles around me, y'all. I'm telling you, could run circles around me. Like, my grandmother has always been in tip-top shape. And so I started noticing her wanting to start wandering off and walking down the road, and I couldn't get her to get in the car and come back, like, home with me. Like, she got like a little ways. She got like to the neighbor's driveway or something. And so I got in the car and I drove to her to try to get her in the car. That way we could like drive around or something, because she wanted to wander away. So right when I noticed that, the first time it happened, I called the lady from Adult Protective Services and I told her this. So she required me to take my grandmother the very next morning to the doctor and have a capacity test done on her. And she was diagnosed with dementia that day. Still undisclosed as far as what level of dementia or what stage of dementia she was being diagnosed with. It was just early onsetting dementia that she was diagnosed with. And so the lady also told me to go to my grandmother's bank, take my grandmother to the bank, and take my father off of the joint account, because my grandmother had added my father when my grandfather passed away. Take my father off of this joint account, close the account, and open a new account with only my grandmother's name on this account, and only her having her access to it. Not even giving, like nobody else having access to this account. She told me to put the documents and the paperwork up in my safe, and which is exactly what I did. I followed these directions to the T, everything that I was supposed to do with APS. And so all of a sudden, a couple days later, the lady calls me and she's telling me that they had to, instead of being able to close the case, they had to transfer it to a different caseworker. So this case has been open since July of 2024. It's still open, and now it's on the third caseworker, and they have not found anything to accuse me of guilty of at all whatsoever. Nothing. And now they're investigating my father and like all this situation. So my family is like having all these family dynamic issues. My dear old grandmother's in a nursing home now, because when my father came and swooped her away, like he was really saving her from a dangerous situation or something, I guess to make himself look better to APS, or like I don't know what his intentions were of him swooping her away from the home and not bringing her back home to live at home. She started living at my father's house, which lived 3 minutes up the street from me, my entire life. And it was just strange. And then all of a sudden, like, her mindset, like, just dementia just started setting in really quickly. She became bedridden at my father's house, and then she was in the hospital. My father turned against me because I sold the house that she signed over to me. She signed over the house that I lived in with her. It was my grandparents' house. I think they moved in like the 70s or something. Beautiful house. I never had any intentions on selling. And when I actually went and transferred the property over to myself, because my grandmother signed it over to me, so why wouldn't I go and do what the typical thing to do is go transfer the documents, the paperwork, like you're supposed to do. So I went and I did that, and my father got an email and states that somebody had done something with the ownership of the home from Dallas County. So he found out that I put the house in my name. Well, he started acting belligerent. My father turned against me right then and right there, and my father's been turned against me since then. And I love my dad, but right now we're on first name basis, and I hate it. Like, my entire family has turned against me because I sold the house, because the way that my father was acting to me, very belligerent. he was tried to put his hands on me once when the lady told me to go to the bank with the bank situation. He put his hands on me. He pulled a knife on me, several things. So I just felt very uncomfortable living 3 minutes down the street from him. And so somebody offered me money for the house, so I sold the house. And I purchased me a new home. I love my new home. I don't regret selling the house. I don't feel like I did anything wrong to my grandmother because he had taken her away from the home and he never intended on moving her back to the house. And there was, we needed to start figuring out what was going to happen with her anyways, with her mental status, who was going to be taking care of her, like guardianship type of things, and plans being put in order, because her dementia her mind just decreased so quickly once she started staying with my father. Her dementia onset really quickly. So, with him being so close, I put the house up for sale and I moved. So now my father's turned totally against me, but I'm dealing with all these family dynamics, still trying to get this Adult Protective Services case closed. And now, my uncle's trying to sue me for my home, so I'm trying to deal with that. But now we're caught up to current in my life, and that was 49 minutes and 14 seconds, my little span of my life that I wanted to let people in on before I actually start posting. So yes, so I purchased me a new home. I love it. It's my dream home. It's beautiful. I love it. I don't ever want to move from here. But I unfortunately just needed out of the situation, and it was so overwhelming for me. I ended up leaving everything. I took the clothes on my back, my dog, and my car and got out of there. It was one of those situations. So I started completely over from scratch in January of 2025. Started life back over from scratch and stayed in Airbnbs for a month until my house was done being remodeled. They're not remodeled completely, but I put some work into it when I purchased it, and then I moved in, and I've officially gained everything that I needed to gain or purchase to be able to live comfortably and have my things that I needed, my clothes and furnishing my house and stuff like that. So I'm happy now. I feel terrible that my family's going through the situation that they're going through right now. Is definitely not the time that we need to be arguing and having fallouts, because my grandmother is so down and out, with her dementia and in a nursing home. That's not the time to fight and argue and be against each other. That's the time to work together, I believe. And nobody seems to want to do that. So I'm having a stressful situation with that. But this is caught up to current now. So now that we're current, I want y'all, first of all, if you listened for 50 minutes to my story, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope that you give me a subscribe and join me here. And I want to start doing some personal development and spreading my message as far as being a survivor and a recovering addict, and just trying to grow a little community here and do some personal development. I'm in the process, in the process of gaining a Zumba certification, so I can start posting Zumba videos and workouts. That way I can work out and hold myself accountable, and other people can work out with me here. I can go live and all that. We can grow following. I can send some motivational and inspirational words of encouragement through my videos and just through some content to better ourselves one day at a time. And I believe that anybody can do anything they set their mind to, no matter which direction their life has gone into. God is in control, and we can always change our lives. So that's what I hope to do here with this channel. And if you've listened for this long, thank you. You are a freaking rock star. But I will go ahead and get off of here. If y'all have any questions about me or for me, or if y'all have any comments or just want to tell me my life is crazy, y'all are more than welcome to comment in the comment section. I am definitely going to comment back and respond back. I would love some interaction on my channel. Like I said, I want to grow a community here. So come in, hang out, introduce yourselves, tell me where you're from and how old you are. Just give me a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and let's get to know each other, and let's better ourselves one day at a time together. I always think it's better to do things in pairs and with a group, so let's do it. Thank you for watching. Bye, y'all.